So, hi everybody. My name is Matt Warner of Warner Paranormal. I've been a paranormal investigator or ghost hunter, whichever term you prefer, for off and on about 20 years. I've been doing it the past few years, much more in a public eye. Been doing a lot more of events and things like that. And as I grew up, I was always fascinated by horror movies and all that good stuff. And then ghosts kind of fell in there. I started having experiences as I was a kid, and as I grew up, I realized there was more people out there like me that had these experiences. So I furthered that and started looking into it a little bit more and read all the books I could read, all the shows I could watch. And here I am now running around in the dark as an adult looking for ghosts that may or may not exist.
Cool. And you had mentioned, and this kind of leads into one of the questions that we had for what got you into this. It sounds like it was watching horror movies and having experiences at a young age. What sort of experiences did you have?
So when I was little, I had a great nana. My nana would buy me anything. She was that nana you could ask for anything, anytime, and she'd buy it for you. And we used to go shopping all the time, and I would convince her to buy me all these horror movies that I really shouldn't see at that age, but she didn't know any better, and she would just buy them for me. So as a young child, I got to witness a lot of really cool horror movies and grew up loving that. And as I got a little bit older, the TV shows started coming out, like in Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings, and then Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures started coming out. And it made me realize that the paranormal was actually more normal than it seemed. When I was little, the same man at her house, there was a ghost that was at the house. I never really had any experiences, but we just called it Casper the Ghost. And she would tell me things that happened there. And I think it was my great grandmother that passed away in the house. So we always just kind of thought it was her. Now, they had experiences. I never had any experiences there, but growing up, I just kind of had things happen that I couldn't explain. I remember one night waking up and just kind of glancing out of the corner of my eye, and I saw like a shadow standing in the corner behind my door, but it wasn't from floor to ceiling. It was like ceiling to halfway down. And I kind of looked, I said, what is that? What is that? And I brushed it off. I said, I'm just sleepy, went back to sleep. When I was a teenager, I was watching a movie, and my bed was at an angle from where the TV is. And I was looking, and there was a face that wasn't a part of this movie, but it wasn't looking through the screen. It was looking at me at an angle. And I'm kind of like, no, that's not happening, is it? And it was like a silver face. And this was not long after my grandfather had passed away. So I was kind of trying to rationalize it away and say that's not there, first of all. And maybe it was just grandpa saying hello. So I never really knew. At this point in time, I didn't have any friends that were into paranormal. All my friends were into sports and all the usual stuff that most people are into. And I was the quote unquote weirdo of the group. But as I was reading more books and watching more shows, I would get books on local legends and just drive around and see if I could check these places out. And the experience that really turned me into a full-blown investigator happened on this road near where I live. And I'm in the South Shore of Massachusetts, within what they call the Bridgewater Triangle. So this road had legends to it that if you drive down the road, you'd encounter all kinds of things, from Bigfoot to ghost hitchhikers to giant thunderbirds, mythical creatures, and UFOs, everything. If something could happen, this road was supposedly one of those places. And it goes through Native American reservation land and conservation land at this point. So the road itself is, the first half is all these expensive homes. And then the second half is just a narrow cut through road that goes from there to a major road. So what we would do, and I drove up and down this road at least 100 times, and we would drive up and down. My friend, we had nothing to do as teenagers. So that's what we did. And one time I went there with a friend of mine, and it was the middle of January. It was a really warm January. And my friend was a real scaredy cat anyways, and I knew this about him, and I used to like to mess with him because that's what good friends do. We give each other a hard time. But when we were heading down to the road that night, I said, I think I want to stop in the middle of the road tonight. And he said, yeah, don't do that, dude. I don't want to have to do that tonight. And I said, no worries. I won't do that. Knowing damn well I'm going to do that anyways. So what we would do is we would drive down the road. We'd turn around at the end and creep back through, kind of get a 2-for-1 for the ride down. So it was a really warm night. It was dry. There was no snow. And we were driving down the road really slow, had the windows down, and it was nice out. It was a really nice night. So we turned around at the end and we come creeping back through. And as we get into about the halfway point of the road, I started putting my foot on the brake, and my friend looks at me and said, "Don't do this." And I said, "Dad, don't worry about it. I'm just going to put my foot on the brake, turn the lights off. It's going to be fine." And I could see that he was visibly scared about it. I was more or less laughing about it because I wanted to spook my buddy out. And I didn't expect what happened to happen. So I bring my truck to a full stop. I flick my lights out. The second that I flick the lights out, directly in front of my truck, on the hood, I see two hands, arms going up, and a white dress. I never saw the head because I freaked out so much I flipped the lights on immediately. I floored my truck and it would not move, as if it was being held by these hands. The wheels spun and spun, and eventually, what seemed like an eternity, it was probably a matter of seconds, the truck was, what I say, released, but it didn't go straight forward. It went as if it was pushed to the side, and it went at such a hard angle that I don't even think physics would explain it. But now the truck, because I had it floored, is going very fast, and I'm trying to grab the wheel. The wheel isn't responding. I'm looking at my friend. He's freaking out. "Dude, don't do this. Don't do this." And I looked over at him and said, "I can't control this. I'm trying to stop this." At the last second, I was able to jerk the wheel back to the road right before we smashed into a huge tree. And we went through that neighborhood at probably 60 miles an hour until we got out onto the main road. We're both freaking out. We pull out onto the main road. I pull over, and I looked at him. I said, "What did you see?" And he said, "I saw a woman in a white gown with her hands on the front of your truck." And I said, "And that's exactly what I saw." And confirmation between the two of us without actually speaking of it while it was happening blew my mind. And I didn't go back down that road for years. I know to this day he's not been back down there, but that really opened my eyes and made me realize there are things out there we cannot explain and that most of us don't see. And I really wanted to see more of that. Once the fear wore off, I really wanted more of that. And that's what drives me to keep doing it to this day, to try and find more and have more personal experiences.
So that actually relates to one of the questions. Would you say that that's the craziest encounter that you've had with the paranormal, or is there another encounter that you'd say would be the craziest one you've ever had?
I would say that's definitely the craziest. I have had quite a few experiences, especially this year alone, but that's the craziest. That's the kind the non-believers will say, "There's no way that happened. That's Hollywood movie stuff." And I would swear on anything that did happen to me. I've been in some pretty crazy places and had some crazy things. I did an investigation at an abandoned jail in Detroit this summer, and I was chased out of there by a shadow person, and it did not like me being there. And I actually saw it with my eyes run down the cell block towards me, and it hit me. This cold whoosh of air hit me, and I took off. I didn't run because I knew I was being filmed and I didn't want to look like a wimp. But I was scared, and I left the area, and I did not go back in that area that night because I took it as a sign, like, I'm not gonna mess with you any longer.
Definitely. So going on with that, because you said you've gotten to go to also some crazy places, what has been kind of your favorite places that you've gotten to explore and do an investigation at?
I think my favorite place is still Waverly Hills, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a former tuberculosis sanitarium. They don't have an exact number, but there was at least 8,000 deaths that occurred during the TB outbreak back in the early 1900s. And it's 5 floors, 200,000 square feet, and just loaded with energy. And it was my first real deal, full-blown investigation that I put together. So it'll always be near and dear to my heart, but it's an incredible location. The Detroit 6th Precinct Jail was another great location I've been to. I'm actually, after I get off the Zoom with you guys today, I'm going down to the actual Conjuring house, and I'm part of a live stream that's going on there. I've done a few investigations at that house, and that house is incredibly active as well. I've been to quite a few places, and one thing I will say in terms of going out and ghost hunting, if any of you ever do it, if you ever go to a public ghost hunt, ghosts were people at one point in time, and they may not feel like talking to you. We go out, we could go to a place that's supposedly the most haunted location on earth, sit there for 10 hours and not have one thing happen. That doesn't mean that it isn't a haunted location. It just means that maybe they just didn't feel like playing with you today. It's kind of like we try to tell people the paranormal is not really the circus. It's not like going to a zoo and guaranteeing to see a lion. You may go out on a safari and never see a lion. It's the same thing with ghost hunting. But there's enough evidence to back up most of these locations that things have happened. And I myself have recently, in the past year or so, started going out with a different approach now, as opposed to trying to film everything I do and put together all these evidence packages. I'm going out for my own personal experiences, and I open myself up a little bit more, and I find that I've had such a better time doing it. It's more enjoyable. And but again, you can never guarantee that you're going to see a ghost.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about like finding evidence and things like that, I know you mentioned that you use various equipment for measuring kind of paranormal activity, paranormal when you're paranormal investigating. What
Yeah.
kind of equipment do you use, and how does it work, if you don't mind?
Not at all.
Telling us?
I have my what I call my go-to kit next to me because I was prepared today, which doesn't always happen. I'll show you guys a couple of the basics. Anyone that's ever watched any of the ghost hunting shows, you've probably seen one of these before. What this is, I'll turn it on. This is what's called a K2 meter. And what this does is, you'll see it'll light up when I get close to the computer usually. Actually, if I put my phone to it. Oh, it doesn't want to play today. Of course, because it wants to make me look bad. What this does is this measures any electronic waves in the air. So a lot of times what you'll find is people claiming all sorts of things like, oh, we get headaches and, you know, we're nauseous, we're seeing things. High levels of electricity or an electromagnetic field can create those issues for you. If you live under high tension lines, or if you have old wiring in your house, you have overhead lights, the big fluorescents, they give off a lot of electricity, which is, or EMF. That can cause you to have all these issues. So many times we'll use one of these EMF detectors to walk through a house and make sure that it's not old wiring or the microwave, for instance, giving off these things, because it can help explain things. Another way we get to use this device is we'll do what's called a baseline sweep. We'll walk around, make sure nothing's going on, and then we can leave it lit up. And one of the theories is that when spirits get close to it, because they're giving off an energy, that it lights up. And we've had a lot of success using these for spirits to interact. We'll say, you know, can you light this up if you're in the room? And sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Now, is that definitive proof of a ghost? No. I'm a skeptical believer. I believe everything that's happened to me, but you have to prove to me what's happened to you. So I'm always questioning, even my own things that happen. I'm always wondering, is that what happened? So that's one of the basic tools. A very old tool that I love using are these right here. These are called dowsing rods, and these have been around forever and ever. They usually use these to find water. These are made out of copper, and theory behind these is that spirits can use the energy in your body to manipulate these to move and answer yes or no questions, point to, that type of stuff. I've used these with quite a lot of success as I've gotten to know them a little bit better. They're not, when you guys watch the TV shows, there's a lot of things that light up and make noise. These are about as boring as you can get to watch someone use, but for the person using them, they're incredible. So you won't see these on many TV shows because no viewers aren't going to want to watch you doing that. What else? This little device is called a V-Pod. So it has an antenna. I'm going to turn it on and it's going to be obnoxiously loud, but you'll get to hear it. So it lights up, and what happens is if anything gets near it, it'll light up and let us know that there's something there. These are very successful too, because we can leave this in a hallway or another room, be in another spot, and if anything's going on, this will make enough noise where we can hear it and then go kind of check it out. I love this toy. This is called a vortex dome, and you turn it on the bottom. It's got a light up at the top, and it's got all these different lights all the way around it, and they all light up a different color. So what this does, this reads static electricity in the air. The theory behind it is if spirit energy comes up to it, wherever it may be, it'll light up that light first, and then the lights kind of make a circle to let you know it was there. And it's very, you know, if you're sitting in the dark for 20 minutes and then this thing just randomly goes off, it's quite interesting to see that happen because it shouldn't go off on its own. These are the more fun ones because you can see them. Let's see what else. And then I have a bunch of different full spectrum, what they call full spectrum cameras. Those cameras are modified. They have a lens on them that is modified so that with a special infrared light, you can record in total darkness and see as if you're seeing in a regular light. That helps us to record in pitch black so that we can see any potential shadow movement and things of that nature. They've come in very handy. I have this right here, which is called an SB7 or a spirit box. This is one of the most popular models. What you do with the spirit box is it's basically a radio frequency. You have AM or FM, and it just continually scans. And if you've ever seen a show, all you hear is the theory behind this one. If you're scanning frequencies and a spirit wants to use the energy that's coming off of that, it can pull words from these broadcasts to speak to you. Do I fully buy into it? No, I don't. But there's been times where it's been very interesting to use. So anything that we can use to further our research and potentially provide evidence is totally on board for us. And then what I don't have within reach, which is the most primitive ghost hunting tool ever, are light up cat balls. These little toys you can buy at Stop and Shop or pet shops, and they're clear plastic balls with lights in them. You press the button, and what happens is when they move, they light up. So cats like to play with them. We've had good experiences with spirits that want to play with them. And I was on a ghost hunt last weekend at a place that has spirit cats, and we had a spirit cat playing with the cat balls right in front of us. And that was quite fascinating because I had not seen the cat prior, and I've been to this location numerous times. And every day there's something new coming out that people like to try out, and there's people creating new devices to further the evidence in the field, and it's exciting.
And of all the equipment that you've kind of talked about, is there one that's kind of your favorite to use, or one that you think is the most effective in catching or explaining away maybe paranormal activity?
So for one thing I didn't mention that we all carry is a voice recorder. The best piece of equipment anyone can have nowadays is their cell phone, because you can record audio, you can take pictures, you can take video, you can get apps. The purists out there will say just all you need is a recorder and your own body, your own senses. I really like using the dowsing rods because they've started to work for me. As I mentioned, they do get boring. I do a lot of live ghost hunts on my paranormal page, and people like watching it, but it's not exciting, if that makes any sense. Those for me personally are my favorite, but what I'll try to do is set up some of these light devices on the floor or wherever I am investigating so that I can kind of corroborate with the dowsing rods. I'll say, if you're here, give me an answer. Can you light that up? And occasionally we will get the lights and the rods all working together. And I do have a special camera that was built for me that allows me to live stream in full spectrum in the dark from anywhere, as long as I have Wi-Fi service. So that's like my favorite thing to use. When it works, it's great, but finding service in most of the places I go to is near impossible. But if I'm just going for my own personal sake, I like to grab the dowsing rods, the V-Pod, and the static dome that I showed, and occasionally the K2 meter.
And you had mentioned before that you still, you see yourself as a skeptic. What sort of things do you see when you're doing paranormal investigating that might seem paranormal, but then you're able to explain away?
A lot of times, so what we try to do is, the term debunk. We try to debunk everything so that because I am a skeptic. There are people out there that they believe everything, and those are the people that I shake my head at. But a lot of ambient noise, so background noise, most of it can be explained away. A lot of times it can't. But when we hear a noise, we try to go down the list of, okay, what could that have been? Or if we see a shadow, okay, could a car have driven by? Could someone with a flashlight be walking in another part of this building and created that shadow? So we will try to replicate whatever we saw or heard and go from there. If there's claims like, oh, this room every night at 10 o'clock, the door opens on its own, we'll sit there, we'll record, we'll videotape it, do the best we can to try and capture it. One thing that I struggle with, and is the psychic medium aspect of things. Now, I myself am one. I'm still very green when it comes to it. I don't understand it. I don't fully believe that I'm one. I've had plenty of people tell me. I'm starting to have my abilities come out. I know what I'm seeing with my eyes, I'm seeing, but I can't prove that to anybody else. So I keep a lot of it to myself. But there are a lot of psychic mediums out there that, to me, I just can't buy because of how ludicrous the things that they say are sounding. So when they go off on these tangents about things, what I try to do is corroborate their stories, find evidence to back up what they're saying, because I don't want to publicly dismiss anybody. Just because I think you might be out of your mind, you might believe yourself. If you believe in yourself, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And I'm not one to tell you what you can and can't believe in, but there are some people that I have to try to work around and see, all right, is this real, or are they making this up? Because there are a lot of people within the paranormal that like to make things up to make themselves look special, or to sell tickets to an event, sell books, those types of things. And you just have to be wary of that. And that's why I took a step and started doing this for myself more than anyone else, so that I can enjoy it again, because it's supposed to be a fun hobby. It doesn't pay the bills, obviously. And if your hobby's not fun, you should get a new hobby. So I take everything everyone else says with a grain of salt. I have a lot of close personal friends that I love dearly, but I think that they're kind of full of crap sometimes, but that's them. And I just let them have their beliefs and move on with my own.
And going along with debunking, when you're doing paranormal investigations, if you had to put it to a ratio, about how often are things able to be debunked and explained versus things that are potentially paranormal and cannot be explained?
If I was to put a ratio based on just my own experiences, I can probably explain away 75% of the things that have happened. So there's enough there for me to know that there's a lot of things going on that we can't see. I'm also trying to open myself up more so that I can see more, if that makes sense. I used to walk into places with what I would say blinders on and just see what's in front of me, but now I'm trying to see all around and absorb everything. And it has helped, because once you're in a 360 view of everything, you're open and you can feel everything versus what's in front of you. So that has helped me kind of experience more in the paranormal. But there are a lot of things you can explain away. I mean, old houses, old buildings, they settle over. The heat can make the hot and cold temperature changes, makes wood swell. It fluctuates. It creaks. People hear footsteps. That could just be the floor settling. It could be the foundation settling. It could be and a lot of these old buildings have pigeons in the attic. I find pigeons and bats in attics all the time. They make a lot of noise. If you don't know that that's happening and you're on the first floor, you hear a noise up in the attic, you're probably going to think it could be a ghost. More often than not, we're able to explain that stuff away. And same thing with photographs. Photographs, I have a hard time seeing things in photographs. A lot of people will look at a picture, so there's a face in this picture. The term for that is pareidolia, and it's something that the mind does, and it helps you, it makes you see things. I don't have that. I can't see anything in photos. And people send me photos all the time. Oh, what do you see in this photo? I see a picture of your grandma. I don't know anything else. What are you seeing? So it's easy for me to kind of not take that as paranormal. But when I see something with my own eyes, when I see a shadow and I go through every step and realize there's no way that shadow could have occurred, that goes in the evidence bank in my head. And I realize that it was there. So I try really hard to debunk everything, just because I want to be taken serious. I have a great time doing what I do. And anyone that knows me will say I'm a goofball, but I'm very serious when I'm actually ghost hunting, because I want to be taken seriously. And I don't want people to ever think that I'm one of those people that fakes evidence, and because I can't stand the people that do that. But I'd say 75% of it can be debunked.
And going off another question that I got from a student, have you ever felt or had evidence of something traveling back with you? Because you've mentioned, going to all these amazing locations. Has anything ever potentially left with you?
So that's a fantastic question. So we call that a spirit attachment, and that I unfortunately am a magnet for those. I am an empath, that I've always known and accepted. And so an empath is a person that can really feel energy and absorb. It's like being a sponge. If I walked into your classroom and you guys were all upset, I would soak up all that energy and I would be super upset. If you were all happy, I feed off that energy. I leave all jazzed up. It's the same thing with spirit investigations for myself and others like me. I have brought home spirit attachments far too often. And they're different. They're different every time. Some are harder to get rid of than others. In the beginning, when this was happening to me, I didn't know what it was. I thought I was just in a bad mood and that, just having a bad day. They usually last a couple days. And the way I explain it is it's like being on autopilot. You're just going through the motions, but you don't feel in control of yourself. And it almost feels like someone's got the puppet strings and just walking you through the couple days. It's like it's a hitchhiker. It's a spiritual hitchhiker. And they really can bring your mood down. They can turn you into a different person. I've had it a few times where I've had remote help. I have a lot of psychic friends throughout the country that can do Reiki and spirit removal things from afar. And I also collect haunted items and enchanted objects. So I have a lot of those, and I bring those home purposely because I want to collect those. So I deal with it on a different level than most people. This year I've worked on a lot of becoming better about protecting myself. So I used to be very naive. I would go into a room or a haunted location and say, use my energy, do what you need to do. And while we want to allow the spirits to use our energy for manifestation or what have you, we can't open ourselves up completely because they will drain you of everything. You hear a lot on these investigations, oh, my batteries died, this and that. We are giant batteries ourselves. And I can tell you, I've had full body drain numerous times by allowing too much to take from me. And when you are worn down like that, you make yourself more susceptible for an attachment. So I've worked really hard this year on grounding and protecting myself, as they call it. And it's very simple. It's mostly just positive affirmation. I walk in now, I say, you can use my energy, but you cannot leave. You have to stay here. I'm going home alone. You are not welcome to come with me. And you envision yourself being protected by a white light or whatever calms you and comforts you. You can call on your spirit guides to protect you and things of that nature too. There's a lot of spirituality that goes into it that I honestly didn't used to believe in, but now that I've gotten into it and seen some of it, I believe it a lot more. So this year I haven't taken too many attachments home with me, but I will say I've dealt with a few attachments this year. And I went when I was in Detroit at that prison. A guy that I had not met prior, I met him on Facebook. I met him in person when I was there. He came up to me. He said, I want to tell you something. I said, okay. He said, you have an attachment with you. And I said, I've heard that. I said, it's an older guy, right? And he's taking my energy. And he said, yep. And he said, the good news is I don't think he's going to be staying with you. I think we can get rid of it. I don't know where he came from. I said, well, I had another psychic reach out to me about a month ago saying it was there. And because I am on such a higher level of energy and I'm, what they say, vibrating higher, I'm not noticing it. But eventually he's going to break through and take all my energy. So I said, well, if you can get rid of him, that would be great because I don't want him with me. And we went through our investigation that night and everybody was hanging out outside afterwards. The next day I drove down to Indiana to do a ghost hunt and he was going to be there also. And he came up to me and he said, I have some good news. And I said, did you get rid of it? And he said, yeah. And he said, I'm not open about these things. I don't talk to people about these things, but this experience, when we were outside at the end of the ghost hunt last night, I could see this thing sticking to you, behind you. And I was walking around in my head telling it had to leave. It couldn't be a part of you. And he said, you know what? I watched that thing get sucked off of your back and dragged right into the prison. And that's where it is. And that blew my mind because that's an experience I've never even heard of. And he's an older guy. He's not going to BS me like that. He even said, I've never had anything like that happen. And that was an incredible experience for my life to have happen. So that was the most intense spirit removal that I've had this year. But I'm very long-winded. To answer your question, yes, it's happened a lot.
That actually led into the next question was, how do you protect yourselves during these investigations? Because it does sound like, sometimes you have to be protecting yourself, protecting your energy and all that.
It does. And I, for a very long time, did not believe in it or buy it. I thought it was a lot of hocus pocus. And I didn't believe in a lot of psychic people either. But as I've started to develop my own beliefs and my own abilities, I'm starting to become that earthy hippie person that I used to make fun of, because now I believe it. And now I carry certain crystals in my pocket and I wear protection bracelets and I walk in and I say, you cannot harm anyone here. We are a higher power than you. You need to stay here. We're here to give you a voice. The main thing that I have found works really well so far, be respectful of these spirits. They were people. Most of them might not even know that they've passed on. A lot of spirits are just living their lives as if they're still alive. And for us to come in and try to be rude and antagonize them, that would be like someone coming in your class and doing that to you guys. You'd respond negatively. So we try to just treat the spirits with the respect that they deserve as once living humans, and it works out much better. And you're much less likely to go home with an attachment. And I know a lot of people have taken attachments and don't realize it, because I know in the beginning that's how I was. I didn't know what was going on. I just thought I was drained from ghost hunting and just let the couple days pass and I'll be good. But protecting yourself is very important, and it doesn't take a lot of work. It's not like you have to do magic spells. You just have to be firm on your beliefs that nothing is coming home with you. You just set your foot down. Just say, you're not allowed to leave with me.
Another question that we had from our more business-minded students is they were asking, can you get paid for doing paranormal investigations? And if so, and if willing to say how much?
Of course you can get paid. So I will give you examples. If one of your students had a haunted house and they said, we need help, can you help us? You don't get paid to do that. Any self-respecting paranormal investigator will gladly come out and help you rid your house, or, prove or debunk that your house is haunted. We don't charge for that kind of service. But what we do offer, last weekend I put on an event up in Vermont. A lot of paranormal people put on events. The events that I like to do are more based in historical restoration and preservation of locations. There's a castle in Vermont that I did an event at. And what we do is we sell tickets to it. People buy these tickets, they come out, they get to spend the night at the castle, they get to do ghost hunts of the castle with myself and other paranormal investigators. We'll do dinner and what have you. And it's a lot of fun. And then that money for this event went to the castle because we were doing it to support the castle. But if you ever see advertised events like, oh, come investigate the jail with, Joe and Tony, $50 a ticket. What will happen is if you were Joe and Tony, you would contact that jail and you'd say, I want to rent the place for the night. And they'd say, all right, it's $500. So you pay them the $500, and then you then turn around and sell tickets to that event at whatever price you want to charge. And then once you make up that $500 difference, anything after that is profit. So that's kind of how we can make a couple dollars in the field, and nobody is making a living off it. Even the people that are on TV, I'm friends with a lot of the TV folks, they're not making a living off of it either. You're very fortunate if you are. It's probably 5% of people in the paranormal make a living off of it. The rest of us do it as a hobby. Any money I ever make off an event, I usually just buy new equipment, or I put it towards the cost of traveling to these events, because I go all over the country doing these because I've done everything in New England so much. I like to get out and see other places. But most of the time, for most of us, it's just a really fun hobby, and you won't make enough money to retire off of it, that's for sure. But you can generally make enough money to cover your costs if you're good at it.
And for those that, from learning about this are interested and they think, oh, this could be something for me, how does a person begin? How does a person get into it? How do they start?
So if you have an interest in ghost hunting, what I would do is, you can watch the TV shows, but the thing with the TV shows is they're edited down to 45 minutes and they want you to see only the interesting things. You can go on an investigation for 2 days and not have one interesting thing happen. These shows are all edited for ratings. If they didn't have ratings, they wouldn't be on TV. The equipment that they use, most of it's not necessary. It's, again, for TV because it's oohs and ahs. Watch the TV shows, learn about techniques, maybe find locations you'd like to check out, and look for local events. There's ghost hunter events all over the country, everywhere, and most of them are very affordable, and you'll get hands-on learning. You'll get to go to a location that's supposedly haunted. You'll get to use equipment, learn how it works, learn what to do, and get a feel for it. My best piece of advice is don't go buying any equipment until you've started and done a couple of little events or gotten a feel for it, because the mistake that a lot of people will make is buy all the stuff they see on TV, and then it sits around because you find out it's kind of useless to use in a regular investigation. But keep your eyes out for local events, and that would be the way to go. Most of them are 40, 50, $60, and you'll get 4 or 5 hours of ghost hunting at a really cool location, and you can get your feet wet that way.
So those are all the questions that I had written down from students, but I'm going to open it up to see if there's any students that have more questions, either on the Zoom or here in person.
Sure.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
Have you ever, or do you believe in the more aggressive spirits or stuff like the whole poltergeist, all that other stuff that I've watched or I've heard? Do you believe in stuff like that?
Oh, I definitely believe it. So there are a few different types of spirits. There are poltergeists, obviously, which are the aggressive, generally scary spirits. There are intelligent spirits, which are the ones that can generally interact with us and we can ask questions. There are residuals, which a residual is kind of like Groundhog Day. It just does the same thing over and over again. And those spirits generally don't interact. They don't know that they've passed away. I happen to have one at my house. Every night around 10:30, spirit walks in the kitchen door, walks through the kitchen. It's probably something that it did every night. And it's still, if I pay attention, I see the shadow go through the kitchen every single night. And in the beginning, that freaked me out because I said, you know what? I don't really want to deal with that at home, but I've gotten used to it and it doesn't bother me any longer. Now, a theory that a lot of us have, you've all heard the term demon before. Demons are very, very, very unlikely that you'll have an experience with them, I should say. What we look at is in life, if you're a good person in life, you're going to be a good person in the afterlife. If you were kind of an a-hole in life, there's a very good chance you're going to be that same person on the other side. So when we encounter these potential poltergeists or angry spirits or mean spirits, that person was probably just a jerk in life and still just carrying on the way that they knew. So it's too easy for a lot of investigators to use the demon word. And it's obviously a fun word to use on TV because it's like, oh my goodness, a demon. I'm close personal friends with some very well-known demonologists, and they've been doing it for a combined 60 years, and they've only encountered 8 demonic cases in all that time. So in talking with them in length, they're in the same wavelength, that it's very rare to get into that level of anger and rage in terms of spirits. So it's usually just based upon, like, if you look around your class, however you guys are now, that's probably how you would be in the afterlife. I know for myself, I can't wait to scare people in the afterlife because I like to mess around with people and have fun. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become research for all my friends.
That's also
Well,
my plan.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And so the final question is, I mean, right now you're speaking with, in this class, it's 11th and 12th graders. Some of them are about to graduate and go out into the scary new world. So kind of overall and just in general, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Like life advice?
Yeah.
Oh man, you're asking the wrong person. Make sure that whatever you decide to do in life, you enjoy doing it. Just because society says you should do one thing doesn't mean it's right for every single human being. I'm very fortunate at my day job. I love going to my day job. I'm a personal trainer. I enjoy it. Don't ever allow yourself to get into a field, no matter what it is, where you're not enjoying yourself, because you got to remember, you're going to have to work that job 40 hours a week for 40 years. And that is a very long time. It's a very big chunk of your life. So make sure whatever it is you decide to do with your life, you enjoy it and you have fun and you look forward to it. Have good hobbies. Enjoy every minute. Don't live to work, but work to live. Just make sure you're responsible, and then really just grasp life and enjoy every second of it.